Shenichnas Adar, Marbin B'Simcha. What exactly does that mean? Marbin B'Simcha. I mean, it should say Shenichnas Adar, Bi B'Simcha, Mitzvah Gedoyla Liyas B'Simcha. How exactly do I apply this in a practical way? My Marbin B'Simcha. I remember once I went to visit a Yid, lives by himself, all alone, and he complained and cried. He's so bored, he's so lonely. So I asked him when to listen to tapes. He doesn't listen to tapes, he still had those black records. You know, those big, I don't know if anyone remember that. Remember those black records that go around? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he had it. And his record player broke and he couldn't find, he says, the needle. They used to have little needles. Let me give this a little bit of a history lesson over here.
30 years.
Right, they used to have 30 years ago. They used to have little needles. Sometimes the needles would break and they would scratch the record. And then somebody actually gave me a record for a gift. This week was very sentimental. I looked for my old one in the garage. I asked a fellow on my block. He said he has one from his grandfather. I said, did you have to crank it? He said, no. He said the one his grandfather had was connected to a mule. He said they used to go round and round and turn the record. I wouldn't vouch for the authenticity of that, but that's what he said. Anyway, so I explained to this individual, he doesn't have a computer, so I said to him, you could call Kalalashin and you could listen to Shiurim and you can enjoy it. So he told me he doesn't have patience to listen to Shiurim, and that some of the speakers simply bore him so much that it drives him crazy, he has to hang up. He did not mention names. He once said in the middle of Shir, you see somebody that keeps looking at his watch, that's a halbitzer, but when he's like shaking it to say, what's wrong with this? Then you know that you're in trouble. Anyway, so I explained to him that there are so many archived Shiurim from so many different Magidei Shiurim, and why don't you listen to it? And I showed him how to do it, and I said you could even make the guy talk faster, and you could skip 3 seconds, 20 seconds, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you could skip. They say that a good speech is a good beginning, and a powerful ending, and the shortest distance in between. So, you could listen to the beginning, you could listen to the end. You could skip right through it. So it took me a while to teach him, and he picked it up. He knew exactly which buttons to press on his phone. Amen. After a while, what happened was I came to visit him, and he was very angry. And he told me that he tried pressing both the button that speeds up your voice, as well as the fast forward button, and it did not work. I couldn't understand it. I tried to figure out what the problem was, until I realized that he was listening to a live shir. And no, I do not believe that the technology has been developed yet that you can fast forward someone listening to him live. Maybe Min HaShamayim, there's no Zman, but that's like a little bit beyond, I think, short of Einstein's theory of relativity, that time and space and matter is all connected. But right now, Pipashtis, you can't do it. And that frustrated him terribly that he could not fast forward the shir. I said, somebody told me that he once gave a Gevaldig shir. He thought it was a Gevaldig shir. And there was a fellow in the crowd who does documentaries for a major news station. He came over to him and he said to him, Rabbi, I want to ask you something very seriously. Do you think you can take that shir and condense it into 10 minutes? And he already imagined himself famous over the entire country. And he said to him, all excited, he said, yes, I can. So he said, so next time, please do it, he said. That was the end of the offer. Shenichnas Adar, Marbin B'Simcha means as follows, I think. Everyone has a ratio of different things that are going on in your life right now. I'm sure every single person sitting here, every person listening on different venues, there are events going on in your life right now. Some of them are positive. Some of them are, we need a munah to understand. You need faith to understand that they're positive. There are things that are making you happy, that you're excited about. And there are things you're disappointed about. There are things you're looking forward to, things you're not looking forward to, things that you're anxious about, things that you're nervous about. It's part of the human nature at any given time. Now, that's not up to us. The events in our life is not up to us. To some degree, what is up to us is everyone has a balance that they decide that this ratio of calm to the things in your life that are turbulent, I can deal with this ratio and I'm happy. What that ratio is, that's up to you. I say this person comes to a psychiatrist and he's so depressed, he's contemplating suicide, and the doctor says, so tell me what happened. He says, 3 weeks ago his aunt Zelda died and left him $4 million Yerusha. So what's the problem? He said, 2 weeks ago he won the lottery, he won the Powerball. So what's the problem? He says, a week ago the bank informed him of a bank error and they have to add $300,000 to his deposit. He says, what's the problem? He says, this week nothing, he says. Nothing this week. Now there are people that way, right? According to his ratio, that's a reason to cry. Then you can have a shikker laying someplace on the floor, tossing and turning, and he's homeless, and someone brings him a bottle of schnapps, and he's the happiest person in the world. So clearly, most of us are somewhere in between. Somebody told me a good one. He said, a person comes home. What do most people do when they come home? You open the fridge, right? That's what most people do. I shouldn't say most people. Many people do. Many people do. When I stopped doing it when I came home one day, and my little 5-year-old Anikel opened up the refrigerator for me. As soon as I came home, I said, I better stop this. Now, but somebody told me a good word. Someone sent it to me. He said, you open up the refrigerator, there's nothing there interesting. You slam the refrigerator closed, you start opening up all the cabinets. Anyone identify with this? There's nothing there. What are you going to eat? Peanut butter out of a thing? So you go back to the refrigerator, you open it up, and you go now to level 2. In other words, the first time you opened the fridge, you would have never considered that applesauce laying on it. Or the chunk from 3 weeks ago. But at this point, so it happens that if you lower the net in life, a lot of things become much more acceptable. And I think that that's what Marbin B'Simcha means. Marbin B'Simcha means, it doesn't just mean put on one of those hats and, blow the party pooper and run around. And Marbin B'Simcha means to reevaluate your life and to rearrange the ratio. Be marba the setting that is going to generate the simcha. I think today is the Arthur of the Even Ezer. We've said the story many times, just as it's close. The Even Ezer had a very tough life. Very, very tough life. He said that Even Ezer wrote in a poem that if he would have gone into the business of making tachrichim, shrouds for dead people, no one would have died. And if he would have gone into the business of making candles, he said it would have never gotten dark. Yet the Rambam writes about the Even Ezra that he had the ruach of Avraham Avinu, the spirit of Avraham Avinu, which means that he must have generated a tremendous amount of joy. So there's a story, the Even Ezra was the great Medagdek, he was the big Baldigduk, the grammar person, and he once found out that somewhere, someone has a scroll with trup on it, the musical connotations on top of the letters. It was very rare in those days. And even though it was a war year, he risked his life, and he dodged checkpoints and crossed borders, and he got it. On his way back, he was stopped at a crossroads, and they said, what are these little dots on top? He'll go explain to some Greek soldier, they said these are the music notes. What music notes? These are secret dots, and this is a code to the enemy, and you're revealing secrets. And he was arrested and thrown into prison. And then comes in this big general, and the general starts negotiating with him. He says, tell me the truth. Decode this for me. Decipher this for me. What are these codes? And who are you sending the secrets of our army to? So he tells him, this is a pazeh, and this is a shalshalas. Don't tell me stories, he says. You want me, says the general, I'll help you. You have to level with me. So the Even Ezra said, I need your help. And he was very angry at that comment, and he left. And the next day he came back, he says, why'd you talk to me with such chutzpah? He said, I spoke to you with chutzpah? He says, I said, I need your help. He said, but now you're saying it with a different nigun, with a different tone. He said, yesterday you said, I need your help. Now you're saying, I need your help. He says, so what's in a nigun? He says, the nigun is yesterday I would have executed you for it. Now I'll save you for it. So the Even Ezra says, now you understand why I risked my life for the tones, top of the letters. Do you see how important the trup is in life, the nigun is in life? You suggested yesterday you don't believe me, I would risk my life for the nigun. Don't you see how the nigun in your life changes everything? We can't change our lives for the most part. But you could change the nigun in your life. Yorechaim HaKadosh in Parashas Vayechi, he asks a question. He quotes a question that many people ask. Why the longer lifespans at the beginning of the Torah? Adam Arishan lived after the Chet Eitzadas for 970 years. He's supposed to live 1,000, he gave away 70 to David HaMelech. 1,000. And even afterwards, we saw lifespans of 800 years, 700 years, 600 years. It keeps getting less and less until we're down to where we are. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu take away these years of life? I mean, imagine you live 1,000 years and you start collecting Social Security at 65. I want to tell you the federal deficit would be very problematic, but I doubt that that's the reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought down the lifespan. When somebody told me that he was a doctor and he had a patient that was 104 years old. So he said the guy was sharp like anything. Like he said, he asked him, what's the difference between, he says, what's the difference? The doctor asked the patient, what's the difference between being 104 and 103? So the patient answered, a lot less peer pressure, I can tell you for sure, he says. And the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh explains like this. He says that, from the Arizal, he says everyone in his life has a job of netzotzos. Netzotzos literally means sparks. And the way this is understood is that after the chet of the Yetzer Das, so whatever was supposed to be the original plan of this world was broken up into trillions of pieces called sparks. And everyone has a certain amount of these sparks that you have to pick up. Now the Arizal explains this. We can try to explain life. Let's imagine I'm playing a game and I throw out trillions of pieces of paper and everyone has a job to pick up the piece of paper and bring it back home. Obviously, it's more complicated than that, but that's the general idea. Now, originally, he says, let's say you have 30,000 sparks to pick up, and I have 30,000 sparks to pick up in my life. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you, 1,000 years to do it, because that's how long it took to do, 500 years. Now, what happened was people were slacking off. And the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh gives a mashal. That suppose you called a jeweler in, a bunch of jewelers, he gave them 30,000 diamonds and said, I'm coming back after 10 years. I want to see what the crown looks like. Comes back after 10 years. These guys are roaring drunk. What crown? No, nothing. So he punishes them and he gives the job over to their kids. And this time he says, no, we're running it differently. He says, every week there's an audit. Every week you're coming in. We'll see what you did. I'll send you back for more. Zok the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh that until the Dara Ma'abul Eibishter gave these long lives, people were not very concerned. As a result, they weren't very in the tshuva mode. So after the Dar HaMabul, the Rabbi Shem says, we got to do this differently. And he says, in the Gilgul, we're going to give you, so this is a very big chiddush, be'etzem. Why is this a tremendous chiddush? Because the Derech Hashem says, normally, as we understand Gilgul, that means the Neshama is coming down to this world again. It's for one or two reasons. Either you didn't do everything right the first time, so you have to come down to fix whatever you missed, or there are times that there are Neshamais of tzaddikim, he says, that volunteer to come down to help the generation. Or sometimes one spouse comes down with the other spouse. We've mentioned many times, the Chidah says, a lot of times we see a couple gets married and Shana Rishayna is very rocky. And afterwards things kind of calm down. So he says that a lot of times one of the spouse had to come down to this world and the other spouse had no choice, had to come down with this spouse. So as a result, one side is like, pretty angry. You don't know why you're angry. When you're angry, you have to come down because of you. Because after the first year, he says it settles in. So we understand Gilgul, either I have to fix something or I volunteer. So the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh seems to be saying that there's another concept of Gilgul B'chlal, where a person has so much to accomplish that the Rebbeinu Shem is not willing to give it to him in one lifetime. That he has to break it up over a series of lifetimes because it would be too risky. So we didn't understand how these things go. There was a Yid, Rabbi Avram HaMalach. He was the son of the Mizritcha Maggid. You can imagine if he had that name. And they say he had two Hasidim, but one of them had a terrible problem, Shalom Bayis issue, and his wife was difficult. And the other one had, he had a very beautiful marriage, but he had creditors that were driving him up a straight wall and threatening his life. And each one came to the Rebbe every single year, and they had the same question. One of them asked if he can divorce his wife. The Rebbe said no. And the other one asked whether he can sell off some properties to pay off these creditors, and the Rebbe said no. After a while, one of them decided he's divorcing his wife. That's it. He had enough. He asked the Rebbe, no Rebbe. And he became very sick afterwards. And after the other one went to the Rebbe and said, so-and-so is sick. He said, did he divorce his wife? He said, yeah. He said, why? I told him not to. He says, Rebbe, he couldn't live anymore. He says, you don't understand. He says, you get 3 strikes. That's what the Rebbe said, to come down to this world. Now, what if a guy didn't accomplish what he had to? So you get a 4th time to come down. But the Malach says, not fair. You only have 3 strikes. So the person has to come down under certain circumstances where his life is not a life. So Mamela, we say, let him come down again. He's not supposed to have a 4. He says, but once you take away those circumstances, you're in trouble. Now again, we're not going to get involved in this. What does that mean? I shouldn't try to make my life better. We don't understand it. But there's a reason why people are down here on this world. There's a terrible train crash in Argentina today. So many people, like from one split second to the next, their lives are sucked out. Do we understand? Because Banisham has cheshbainis, how many years or how many split seconds a person has to be down here on this world. So Zakti Archaim HaKadosh, so let's say an average person who lives 70 years has 25,000 days. That's about 3 Shmon Esrei a day, Ad Musaf. So every single Shmon Esrei is, somebody once said, when I got married, my father gave me 10 years in Kail, and I got a third off for good behavior, he said. That's a very bad attitude, obviously. If we have an appreciation for life, then you understand that every single one of your days is counted. Like the Al Shech HaKadosh says, that the Rebbeinu Shem has an interesting minig. God has an interesting custom. The happier you are with something, the more of it He gives you. You're complaining, I'll take it away from you. We have to have an appreciation for life to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give us our... If someone really, really has an appreciation for life, Zayishtei HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give him more of it. I remember with a counselor, one of these camps now for sick children, told me that it's one of the things they try to make these kids happy. So they have every kind of imaginable cereal in the world. So he asked his kid, which cereal do you want? And we got everything. From Captain Crunch to Cocoa Puffs to this to that. He says, I don't know what the Kemach version of Cocoa Puffs is, or Captain Crunch, but he said, and the kid said he wants life. He went around looking for life cereal, and he couldn't pick that cereal he didn't have. So he drove all the way to ShopRite to get it, and he came back, and he said to me, I didn't mean the cereal, the kid said. I didn't mean the cereal. I meant life. Do we have an appreciation? Do we have an understanding for what life is, what life is all about? So, it's Rosh Chodesh Adar here. Let's not get too dramatic. Ani yeshena, I am sleeping. V'libi air, my heart is awake. Zoktus vasemes. Chazal say, Ani yeshena, I am sleeping. Yeshena is gematria 365 days. That's the solar year. So you can sleep through the solar year. Basically, he is on autopilot. The Libi air, that refers to the Levana, counting to the moon. Counting to the moon, that's very, very complicated. It's very, you have to keep readjusting and changing it and readjusting. You know, there's a study that people that went through certain medical setbacks, and they keep watching themselves and checking themselves and go to the doctor, wind up with longer lifespans than regular people sometimes, because they're much more aware of their situation. Somebody once told me a study that if you have a very, very old car, and therefore you keep taking it to the mechanic every 3 months to check the brakes, it's actually safer than the new cars. I don't know if there is such a study, but at least I'm hoping so. But any event. But there is an idea that the moon is a constant pachka. Let's put it this way, Rabbi said. The moon is 29 days. What is the whole rotation of the moon? Does anyone know how long it takes from one new moon to the next? Okay, it is... Maishi, we lost our battery. Where's Maishi? Okay. It is...
29 days and a quarter into
Right. It is 29 days, okay, and 29 days, 6 hours, 44 minutes, 3 1/3 seconds. That's how long it takes exactly for the moon to go from one spin to the other. Okay? From the first new moon to the next new moon, that is the amount of days. 29 days, 6 hours, 44 minutes, 3 1/3 seconds. Okay? If it was longer, I could stall till they get Kalosha back online, but I'm not going to do that to you. In addition...
Use this phone, I don't know the number.
Okay, so in addition, you also have 354 days, which is the Arha, which is the amount of Levana, the amount of moon days, and you have 365. Let me just show it to you, and you'll.
Yeah.
It's a good thing it's like yeshivish and it's not some major station, because we would be in trouble, right? Okay, here's the number. Okay, and here's the password. 2 passwords.
I have no clue how to do it.
Okay, so there we go. In any event, maybe it's a good time to thank Yosef and Moshe Seifer. They really do all the work all the time anyway, every week. Many, many hours of work. Okay. Unfortunately, people in Kalosha won't hear it though. But so we have very complicated cheshbainis. I have 2 problems. A, Rosh Chodesh starts at the beginning of the day, and I'm missing, it's not an exact time. And I have to catch up to the solar calendar. Why do I have to catch up to the solar calendar? I have to catch up to the solar calendar because the Torah says Nisan is always b'chodesh Aviv. And if you're going to keep going 11 days behind, you're going to have Pesach in the middle of the summer. And trust me, kids don't want Pesach in the middle of the summer. They want Pesach when they need Pesach. Right? They would rather have it probably in the middle of the year. So why did the Rabbi Hashem give us this complicated cheshbon? I mean, the Rabbi Hashem couldn't make the moon in even 30 days. The Rabbi Hashem set the program to start with. But the teretz says the Sfas Emes, that we count to the moon precisely for this reason. Because it needs constant adjustment. It slows down, we work it out. The one chodesh is 29 days, the other chodesh is 30 days. That there's a leap year, 7 years in every 19 years. And when there's a Shemitah year, you have to work around it because you don't want a leap year, Shemitah year to be a leap year because it's hard enough to Shemitah an extra month. We have to keep slowing down the process and readjusting it. And that is what Klal Yisrael counts to. Because this is what the Rabbi Shalom wants. The Rabbi Shalom wants to give us an opportunity where at the end of 30 days, it slows down, and then starts again. So people have a chance to get on and off the train. So the whole concept is if you blew it, there's a new Chodesh. You start again. Steipler used to be very into Yom Kippur cotton, which is a tefillah that some people say Erev Chodesh. As a matter of fact, the Steipler, there was once a family, 3 of 4 brothers passed away in a very short time. And the Steipler told the 4th one he should say Yom Kippur cotton. He was obviously very concerned. And for many years he said Yom Kippur cotton. He lived to a ripe old age. He's in a nursing home. His son is there feeding him. His son is there helping him. And at that point, he says to his father, when he's benching, he says to his father, say Yal V'Yavah, it's Rosh Chodesh tonight. And his father says, I forgot Yom Kippur cotton. And he passed away that night. So what does this mean? I mean, incidentally, there are some Hasidic circles that not to say Yom Kippur cotton, some say it only El. But what is the significance? Why the tremendous emphasis on Erev Rosh Chodesh vis-a-vis Rosh Chodesh? The Chafetz Chaim was in Warsaw selling a sefer, and he asked where he can find a minion of Yom Kippur cotton, and it was not Elul, and they told him, we don't say it. And one of them said to the Chafetz Chaim, our Rebbe doesn't say it. So the Chafetz Chaim said, there once was a rich person, he had to travel from Warsaw till Minsk. So he bought himself a first-class coach ticket, and he sits down in the coach and goes to sleep. They wake him up when they get there. Says then you have a poor guy, he has to go from Warsaw to Minsk, and he buys a ticket from Warsaw, to Sosnovtza, then to Radomsk, and he keeps getting off the train, on the train. Says, what are you doing? He says, I can't afford a ticket, I got a Gashnara. So how much money? So I get $1 here, the next station another $1, and I go another stop. So the Chafetz Chaim said, your Rebbe can go from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. He says, I got to go from Rosh Chodesh to Rosh Chodesh. So things slow down. There's an interesting lashon in regard to Rosh Chodesh. It says that there's a special soyer, a special carbon that was brought on Rosh Chodesh, and that was, I'm only repeating what the Gemara says, because we don't know what this means, it was a kapara for God. Kapara for Hashem. What was Hashem's chait? Kaviyachal? That the Rabbi Shalom made the moon smaller when the moon complained to the sun. The Rabbi Shalom has to, what do you mean? The moon was punished. The moon got what he deserved. What does that mean? The moon said, hey, 2 kings, get rid of it. No, get rid of you. You got smaller. Why is that a chait? What does this mean? The Kadosh Baruch Hu's chait. How do we even begin not to understand what we don't understand? It says that the Rabbi Shalom added to the Kaychavim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu added the stars. And why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu add the stars? L'hafiz daita, to make the moon feel good. So in other words, what really happened over here? What really happened is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a world right from Bria Ha'olam. The Rabbi Shalom set it up that the moon became smaller, so that survival means I go through disappointments, I look around at the stars, I look around at my friends, and we're mechazik each other. And the Rabbi Shalom says this was all by plan. It was all by plan. And this is the greatness of Klal Yisrael. Right? You look in every Aron Kodesh, throughout almost every shul, including this Aron Kodesh. We take a tragedy, and we say we're going to write a Sefer Torah to cover that person. What do? We have this unbelievable kayach. We get hit, and we come back stronger. How many chesed organizations are named after people? The kayach that Klal Yisrael has when it gets dark, and they take to the stars and say, we're going to bounce back. And somebody told me a story in the Warsaw ghetto, when everything was burning already, and the Germans opened up the gas tanks. So there was a guy, one of the Warsaw fighters, he had 1 bullet left in his gun. So he said, they were told, you left with the last bullet, kill yourself. So he said, no, he's not going to kill himself with the last bullet because he can live another minute. They say in a second you're going to burn like a Gehenna. And he says, no, I can do mitzvahs. They said to him, what mitzvah exactly are you going to do in the next 10 minutes as the fire is closing in on all sides? He said, Ahavas Hashem. I'm going to love Hashem. So the Rebbe Hashem turns to the Malachim and he says, you said I shouldn't create man? Look at them. Nasa Adam. And the schar for this is beyond imagination. Makes this world frivolous and trivial. So you're going to say, so why is the Kadosh Baruch Hu saying, I'm sorry? Why does the Kadosh Baruch Hu need a kapara? So I once heard a very tifa mashal. It's a mother that takes a child and diapers the child. And the child has a rash. And the mother is cleaning and cleaning. The child is screaming. And you hear the mother say, I'm sorry, uncle, I'm sorry, Baruch Hu. You have to let me do this to you. So the Kadosh Baruch Hu created this world where out of the darkness we come forth. We reach to the stars that are around us. But like Kadosh Baruch Hu loves the people of this world and says, I'm sorry that it had to be this way. But you'll see, when you'll see this schar, it'll be unbelievable. So what is Rosh Chodesh compared to? Like a fast-moving train that has to slow down by the curve. When it slows down by the curve, you can jump on and jump off. Rosh Chodesh is an opportunity to jump on. I always remember that I was on a bus coming back from Montreal. You know, one of the Hamish buses. And the bus, we're not going to say who sat in front, who sat in the back. We won't get into that. But the bus starts moving. You know, and somebody, one guy's running with a suitcase after the bus, you know, and everyone screams, driver, stop, stop, someone's coming. The guy stops, you know, gets on him. Like we're on like 3 blocks away, you know, they're on the highway. Hey, somebody's running, a car's beeping, beep, beep, you know, stop, stop. Bus driver stops, guy gets on. I said, can you imagine like the F train, you know, taking off and say, stop, 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 the guy's running, Buruch's running there, you know. Right, the plane is about to take off, you know, Chaim's running down the runway, hold it. Stop, too late, you missed the train. Right, we stopped for each other. Stop for each other. It's Matthias. I'll never forget, I was on a difficult time in Eretz Yisrael. It was then there was the massacre in Hebron, and the Arabs were rioting, and it was people. It was by the Kaisel. It was Purim night, and we got onto this bus, Matzah Shabbos, the night of Purim. But everyone was nervous and scared and frightened, and you could feel the tension. The bus drives through the shuk over there, and the rocks are hitting the bus on the side. And one guy runs up in front of the bus. He starts screaming, you know, singing, Misha, 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 Nichnas Adar. And the whole bus starts singing. And the whole bus is singing. All different kinds of people on this bus. Chredim, soldiers, whatever you want. Everyone is singing. One guy's going around with Humatash and giving it out. And the driver is like very nervous. He's screaming, he says, stop. No, and then sing louder and louder. So he gets so angry that he pulls the bus off the line, pulls like into the shuk, stops, and gets out. I'll show you. And the guy's singing away, and he's looking around the driver, and finally he runs back onto the bus, you know. I just can't imagine the Coney Island Avenue bus like the driver saying, stop singing, pulls off, that's it, I'm going to, no, I'm driving up to 13th Avenue now, until you stop singing, you know. Remember that, like, what? This concept, the way we live, very, very different than the world. So, you know, lately there's been a lot of kol kairas going around. That's time to tshuva. You know, so many tzaddikim are suffering, and clearly they're suffering for the Avayin Hadar. And you may have seen on the signs, there's the quote of this Psikta, which is a kind of a medrash that says, Ikvus of the Mashiach, things are going to happen. And it says that the 2 kings that remain, the ancient kings, are Paras, which is Persia, and Edom. What's Edom? We don't know, Europe. The original Edom is Rome. And it says that Paras is going to try to destroy the world. That's what the Medrash says. Look it up. And it says the one that's going to be the most nervous is Arabia, Saudi Arabia. And they're going to consult with Edom. And great wars are going to break out, and that's going to be the Chavli Mashiach. Then no one knows that this is, you know, what's happening. But the truth is that the details are so ominously applicable that one has to think. And we all know the famous story Rabbi Chana said from the Chafetz Chaim that when World War I broke out, and as you know, I've mentioned it many times, World War I was not called World War I in its days. It was called the Great War, because it was the war to end all wars. The Chafetz Chaim said, no, it's not. He said that it's going to be Kinderspiel compared to World War II. And the Chafetz Chaim said that World War III is going to be Kinderspiel compared to World War II is going to be Kinderspiel, child's play compared to the third segment. I once heard someone was sitting by a drasha and someone mentioned this Chafetz Chaim. When the guy said a third war is coming and World War II is going to be Kinderspiel, the guy literally started shaking this thing. And then this Rav that was dashing said, and I think He said that this third war that the Chavetz Chaim was talking about is the war against the internet and technology. And I heard this guy go, oh, shoot, that's what it is. Oh, wow. He was like all, hey, we don't know what this means. So you're going to tell me, okay, so why are you telling me all of this? Like, what exactly am I supposed to do about it? You know what I mean? Like, my problem is I got to pay my mortgage, and I got to fix my fuel pump, and I need the shidduch for my daughter, and my job, and I have a hair in my throat, whatever your problem is. And like, I have no time for nuclear bombs. You know what I mean? What do you want? We got to make Pesach now. Right? You have a wife that has to deal with a difficult husband, doesn't understand cleaning for Pesach, and a husband has to deal with a difficult wife when it comes to cleaning for Pesach. As the Wolfen said, what happens if men would clean for Pesach and women would build the sukkah, both would start on Erev Pesach. That's what they say. They say that, the lady's cleaning for Pesach. She says to the husband, can you, help? Whatever he helps is crashing or falling all over. But do me a favor, you can help me? Leave the house. So he leaves, he comes back an hour later, she says, you're back so soon? He says, there's a limit to how much I can help, what do you want from me? So, what do you want from me? So Iran is taking over the world, blowing up the world. So what should I do? I'm going to go home, I'll put Negel Vasa tonight. What do you want me to do about this? There was Rabbi Elimelech of Kalim. I think we've mentioned the story many times. He was in Eretz Yisrael. And they begged him to stay. And he took the last boat back to Poland. Be with his people. And some say in the Warsaw Ghetto he saw a Nazi slapping up a pregnant woman or torturing her, and he went over and told him to stop. And when he didn't stop, he slapped the Nazi across the face, and the Nazi shot him. And as he was lying on the floor, he asked for his fiddle. He asked for his fiddle. They say that he played until he died, until his neshama went up. The Rambam says in Hilchos Time, this was quoted by many of the Rabbanim, that it's a mitzvah saseh min ha-Torah, lizaik, to cry, ulaharim al kol tzara shetavai al hatzibur. It is a mitzvah saseh min ha-Torah to cry out on any tzara that is perceived. And if you don't cry out, and you ignore it, and you say, the world, Iran, nuclear, nothing to do with me, nothing to do with me, I got my own problems. Says the Rambam, derech achzarius, this person is mean, and because of this attitude, many other tzarais chas v'shalom will get attached to this. It's mean, derech achzarius. You know what the Rambam is really saying? The Brisker Rav once told someone, there was a person that wasn't well, and the guy went around saying, he's much better. And the Brisker Rav told this person, you have a din of a roidei. You're trying to, you have a din of someone who's murdering someone. He says, why? I said he's better, but he's not better. And people are stopping to daven. Do we look at it that way? We don't, because we don't really have that proper level of emunah, what tefillah can accomplish. But the Rambam says, hey, if you're not getting the message of it, if you're not reading the vibes and changing your life, so that's derech achzarius. We're all suffering. Who knows what your tefillah can do? If you consider that the world just happens by chance, says Hashem. So the Rambam establishes the link. That the hashgacha that we have depends on how much we believe in Hashem. And oisev lachem chamas oisev kari, the more you think about this, it's interesting. The word vayikra could be spelled in 3 different ways. Vayikra with an aleph means to call. Vayikra with an ayin means to rip. Vayikra with a hey means it happened. So he said that if you believe a yikra, whatever happens in this world just happens, you're in trouble. Kara, but if you change it to an aleph and you say, no, whatever happens in this world, as Hashem said it should happen, kara, that within itself rips the gzeir. So says the Rambam, what are you supposed to do? You got to get together on a tainus and, listen to this one, blow trumpets. Blow trumpets? Yeah, blow chatzaitzres, you blow trumpets. You blow the trumpets, it'll be gewaldig. Trumpets. That's what we need, trumpets. Okay, Mr. Rambam says so. So what's with these trumpets over here? What's the chatzaitzres we should blow? Pasuk says in Parshas Ba'al Loischa, if you simchaschem on the day of your simcha, mayadechem and your yom tovim v'roshi chodshechem, v'sekatem b'chatzaitzres, you will blow with trumpets al oileseichem v'al zivchei shalnech. That's on the day of my simcha, on my yom tovim, on Rosh Chodesh. I blow with trumpets. The Yidden had to move in the midbar, time to break camp and move, they blew trumpets. As a matter of fact, Moshe Rabbeinu had his own trumpet. And that was hidden, nobody, even Yeshua didn't have it. It was put away later. It was made similar to the menorah, it had to be made out of one block, and it had to be worked out. You couldn't put pieces together. What are we getting so excited? What's all this in a trumpet? I don't know much about trumpets. And definitely not much about playing trumpets. But I know this much. A trumpet, you have to blow into, right? And then you press buttons. And if you know which buttons to press, nice music comes out. Or some people know which buttons to press, and the opposite of nice music comes out. But that's this. And now, the Sfas Emes says, Kadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to make the menorah, right? So Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's the most complicated in the world. It's Kaftorim and the Prachim, and you got to chisel it out of one block of gold. Can't just connect pieces. And Moshe Rabbeinu tries and tries and tries and tries and tries, and says, impossible. But I'll keep trying. So Kadosh Baruch Hu says, take the whole block of gold, throw it into the fire, and boom, out comes a menorah. Mikshet Teos, it happens on its own. Kadosh Baruch Hu knew to start with that it's not going to work. So what are you telling Moshe Rabbeinu to try to do the impossible? And the answer is, Moshe Rabbeinu says, I don't ask questions, I try. I'll try. And when you try hard enough, Hashem says, I'll take over and I'll do it for you. Same is true, the Aron had things to carry. Badi Aron. So they all asked, the Aron flew by itself. You got to try. It only flies by itself when you try. The Schachter Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, once came into shul at 11:30, and this guy is sitting there in his talis and tefillin, and he's saying the Parasha of Mun. He said, what are you saying the Parasha of Mun for? He said, it's a school for Parnasa. So the Rebbe tells him, till 9 o'clock, it's a school for Parnasa. After 9 o'clock, the school for Parnasa is go out and work. I got to try. I got to blow. Whatever happens afterwards. It says that the Kruvim on top of the Aron, when they faced each other, it was a very intimate time, and that was a Siman Yisrael were Eisen with Sinai Shalmakim. When they did not face each other, and they were angry at each other, you see a couple, like each one's looking the other way, one's looking out the window, one's looking the other way, each one's looking the other way. If you're looking around looking, you know something's going on over there. When the Kruvim are facing opposite each other, the Kadosh Baruch Hu is not happy with us. So when the Romans came into the base of Mikdash, they found the Kruvim facing each other. What's pshat? The Romans made fun of that. So the Mezritcha Maggid says, my father, share this with me, there's a din chayiv adam lifkay des ishtay kaidim sheyatzel derech. Before a person leaves, he has to be together with his wife. It's like the mashal amah david daima, that a father has no choice. He has to throw his son out of the house, and he calls him over and gives him a kiss on the forehead and says, I have no choice. There's a certain intimate time when you say goodbye. The whole inyan of the trumpets is, the B'nai Shalom, I'm going to try. I know there's going to be ikuvim. I know as I start blowing, now, if not for those foolish buttons, I can blow. But I got to press the buttons. It starts, it stops, it starts, it stops. If I don't know how this thing works, I'm going to say, who put these buttons here? But if you understand it, you say, no, the buttons is what makes the music. It's the starting and the stopping that makes the music. So now, take a look. Haman, he has it all figured out. Him and Vashti are in cahoots with each other for a long time. Then Haman has a great idea. He's going to polish off Vashti because he wants his daughter to become queen. So he arranges Vashti should be killed. Then there's a date between Achashverosh and Haman's daughter. And what does the Medrash say? Between Achashverosh and Haman's daughter. And Achashverosh does not like Haman's daughter. Why? Anyone know why? The Medrash says. Mara says also, because she had bad breath. Do you understand what happened over here? Here Haman has a whole plan how he's going to take over the world, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu gives one blow out of Haman's daughter's mouth, one spoonful of mouthwash in the wrong place, and the whole history of the world changes. You see, you know why the Rambam says Chatzotros is a symbol of tshuva? Because in life we blow, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu presses the buttons. Kadosh Baruch Hu presses the buttons. And when you realize that a Kadosh Baruch Hu presses the buttons, and that's what makes the music, you have a different kind of a life. Different kind of a life. Zoktach Sam Sofer, it says, you know why Mordechai had to wear sackcloth? Because Yaakov wore sackcloth. What does that mean? What it means, says the Sam Sofer, is Yaakov, and of course we don't know what this means, we're just saying the words. But Yaakov, when he lost Yosef, he couldn't take it. All his life he had so many tzaras, he smiled, but losing Yosef meant that he lost, he was going to go to Gehenna, he would lose everything, and he put on sackcloth. Because of that, we have to put on sackcloth. And what is the tikkun for that? The tikkun for that is the Nes of Purim. And what is the Nes of Purim? To rise above the sackcloth. And say, life is going to go on, I'm going to do what I have to do, and the Rabbi Shalom, you press the buttons. I'll blow. I'll blow. Let us say there was once a Schachter who had a shidduch between two poor people. He said, how are you going to pay for this wedding? So one of them said, I have a pair of tzitzis from the Baal Shem Tov. and I'm going to let people come. Anyone wants to come and kiss the tzipses, I'm going to give. They charge 50 ruble. And the other one said, I have a shofar from I don't know which tzaddik, and if it wants to blow the shofar, also give me 50 ruble. So they were able to put together the money for the wedding. Then the Schachter came. He said, "What about my fee?" So he said, "You can kiss and blow as much as you want." We'll give it to you. Our job is blow the chatzaitzros. What the Kadosh Baruch Hu does with the buttons, that's his job. So the Chassam Sofer, look it up in the Drushes, Reish Nun Vav, says an amazing thing. He says, "Savlonis achas." One time in your life when it looks like everything is going down the tubes, and instead of throwing in the towel, you say, "Rabbi Shalom, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try. I'm going to keep going. I have no choice. I have to turn the page and life has to go on," is worth more, says the Chassam Sofer, mikama tefillas than many tefillas. Esther comes to Haman, she makes this big party. What do you make a party for? A bunch of reasons in the Gemara why she made a party. One reason the Gemara says, okay, to make all the Jews say, "Oh no, what's going on? Esther's in cahoots with Haman. We're in trouble. We better start davening." And some say it was to trick him, and some say it was to lift him to the highest thing so he becomes totally confident that the world is his and therefore he falls. And some say, "Im Rav Seinecha, your enemy is hungry, give him food." So some cipher, what does that mean? It means that Esther says, we've done the tefillah part, now life has to go on. Rachak mushiyasi divrei shagasi. She said, at this point, my tefillah is not going to help. What's going to help is a smile on my face, and I'm going on with life. I'm moving on. And that's the Yeshua of Purim. And that's why the whole Yeshua of Purim comes through Simcha, says the Chassam Sofer. Tefillah sets the stage to be able to blow. And that's the Nakudah of the Chatzaitzres. Now listen to this, I want to read to you. This is an article that appeared in Bina magazine, I saw it. And follow with me. It describes the following setting. The Washington subway station. It is a busy Monday morning. The busiest station. It's rush hour. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people running back and forth. Every 2 seconds there's the thundering train come in and coming out. And suddenly out of a train or down the steps comes this tall, lanky guy. He's wearing a cap and tight jeans. And he's holding a violin case. And he's looking around, and you see what he's going to do. He's going to set up shop over here. Then he sits down next to a newsstand. And he takes out a little shlachmanis, negelwasser shissel. And he throws in a few nickels in case people don't understand what it's for. Let them get the idea. And the guy starts playing. And he played for 43 minutes. Somebody was documented what went on. 1,097 people passed. Why was this person documenting how many people passed? So I will now tell you that this violin player on the subway station, his name was Joshua Bell. Never heard of him, but it says over there that he's one of the most famous violin players in the world. And the night before he played in the Boston Symphony, and he got paid $1,000 an hour, and the cheapest seat was $100. And the violin that he was playing, if I don't pronounce this right, was a Stradivarius. Stradivarius?
Yeah.
An original Stradivarius, made in 1773 with a book value of $3.5 million. But if anyone's planning to buy me a Purim present, I do not need a Stradivarius. There are imitation Stradivarius that cost like a mere couple of $100,000. But they don't have the same sound as a Stradivarius. And what was the whole point of this? The whole point was to see if people are going to realize what's happening here, or they're just going to pass by. Okay? Out of the 1,097 people that passed by, no one applauded. One person recognized him. Okay? It took, after 3 minutes, someone casually stopped to listen. Otherwise, people kept passing by. After 3.5 minutes, one person threw $1 into his shissel. After 6 minutes, someone actually stopped and said, like, he wanted to hear. In the whole time, out of all 1,097 people, eventually 7 will stop for a minute to listen. His largest donation was a $20 bill. Okay? 27 people threw in coins. And his total earnings were $32.17. 100% of children that passed stop to look at it. But here's a real fascinating thing. When the Washington Post, who did this experiment, printed the article the next day, they said 10% of people that read the article cried. Why did they cry? I think there's an inyan of Afupi Shiyul Chazi Mazlayu Chazi. You know something? Somewhere in this space medrash, somewhere on this block, somewhere maybe in your family and your house, there is someone that has the courage to say good morning. There's someone that has the courage to put on a red nose on Purim and to smile despite what's going on in his life. And all the malachim and shemayim are looking down. Someone who has every reason to say, I daven and nothing is happening, and it's tragedy after tragedy in my life, I give up. And the next day takes a Tillim again, and he says, what should I do, God? I don't have anyone else. That Tillim, that Stradivarius, is a Stradivarius Tillim. You know why they cried? They cried because we're missing it. We don't believe in our own kaichais. We don't believe the power that we have. We don't believe how many people next to us have the courage to fulfill Mishanichnas Adam Mardan B'Simcha. And maybe down here you get $32 for it. But up there, and the course of you and your life and your next generations, you have to believe, and we all have to believe, that they are paying you for the symphony orchestra.
Thank you very much.